All right, we're ready to start. Good morning, everyone. We are having a talk by Jonathan McDowell, aka Noodles, this morning about the state of the Debian Data Protection team. Looking forward. Thank you.
We are recording this session. There's an area of the audience which will not be recorded. I think it was down as a non-video session. The reason I said we should record it is while it makes me very self-conscious, I think this is something we need to talk about, and I want people to be able to come and, even if I'm wrong, refer to it. So just be conscious it is being recorded. I'm happy to have conversations with people outside the room or afterwards, whatever. If you want to come and have a conversation about something I said, but you don't want it to be recorded, by all means, I'm here all week. Come and annoy me. This is very similar to the talk we did before, but I think it's useful to do again. I'm going to cover who's on the team, what do we mean by data protection, what do we do, what do we not do, what should people in the project do, some resources, and take some questions. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not your lawyer. None of this is legal advice. This is based on my understanding. We are a team of 3 people. There's myself, there's Matthew Vernon, and there's Tola Falkeen. Neither of them could be here. None of us are lawyers, right? Just to get that clear. But we all have either some degree of legal training, some involvement with data protection in our day jobs, or some exposure to this as a concept, which is why we've been involved with it. Data protection is legally enforceable rights over personal data. The most famous example and the thing that sort of precipitated the creation of the team is the GDPR within the EU. It came into effect back in May 2018. It wasn't the first piece of data protection regulation within the European Union. It's not the only piece of data protection regulation in the world. It just crystallized everybody's thoughts around the world into what we should do about it, largely because they had sort of these massive fines that could be levied on companies that didn't comply. Personal data is any information that relates to an identified or identifiable living individual, right? So if I can tell who you are from the data I have, that's personally identifiable information. There's a bunch of stuff about sensitive personal information, which mostly doesn't come into the project in any way and not something we would hold, but things like an email address, things like a postal address, that sort of stuff all comes down into personally identifiable information. And it means also information where on its own you might not be able to tell who it's related to, but you've got enough pieces of data that you can definitely tell who it is, right? So you got to be careful about that. And it's all about having rights to control your data, right? Who has my data? Is the data accurate? Do I have the right to be forgotten whenever it goes away? There is absolutely nothing in any of the data protection regulation I have read that conflicts with Debian values, right? We as a project care about people's privacy, we care about people's rights, we care about people's ability to do stuff with their hardware and their software, and that extends into their personal data. So none of what this comes down to conflicts with anything we as a project do. It's stuff we should be doing even if there wasn't legislation available there. What does the team do? So the team provides a central point for advice. We're not saying we have all the answers. What we're saying is we'll be a focal point if you want to come and ask us some questions or you've got some queries about data protection. We think about these things, right? As a team, we have conversations. We have events like this. We have a bit of thought process about, are we doing the right things? Is there more we need to do? And for people who believe that Debian holds their external data but don't quite know where to contact, we are a single point of external contact, and we will try and route incoming requests appropriately, right? So, I mean, the most common one that ever comes in is I want my list post removed, right? Someone is posted to a Debian mailing list, they want the removed from the web archives, and they come in and ask us. And we route that correctly, right? Because what we don't do is we're not in there auditing or doing anything on service-specific things, right? There are lots of services within Debian. We cannot claim to audit all of them individually. The onus on a service owner within Debian who believes they're handling personal data is to be clear about what they're doing themselves. It's on you, right? And we've had conversations with all of the major teams around this, and I'll get into a little bit more about that. We're not a technical team. We are a technical within the team, but the team is not designed to be logging into services, doing data anonymization, all of that stuff. That's up to service owners to manage it. We are such a disparate project that it just doesn't scale for us to do it. So all of the actual actions that come down to someone's data is up to a service owner. And particularly this is, I think it's important to mention this because we've had some well-meaning folk, and there's been a variety of them who have seen a mailing list post that says, hey, please take my information off the mailing list, and then it gets forwarded to us by someone who is a Debian developer, and it's like, the person who needs to deal with this is Listmaster, right? If you're asking to get a list post removed, I have no access to the Debian list archives. I have no ability to walk in and tell them to do anything. They are responsive. They will deal with requests. I have forwarded things to them in the past. I've had conversations. But if you see something that you think needs to be acted upon, the right person to forward it to is the service owner. If you're not sure about that, by all means come and ask us. But if you see something and you think it's not being picked up, then service owner is the right one to pick it up. I think it's important to make that point, right? We're a point of contact when you don't know who owns the service. If you know who owns the service, we're not adding any value there. So, what should service owners be doing? Be aware that when working on the project, your hat matters. There's a big difference between email you send as your personal email to someone that is just, hey, hi, how you doing, Andy? And an email that Andy sends me in my role as keyring mate, for example, that says, hey, can you remove this key or do this thing with this key, right? It's not personal email if you're actually acting on behalf of the project. And we've had conversations with various teams, and this does make life a little bit difficult. If you have 10 years of archives for one of your Debian project hats, and that has personally identifiable information in it, first of all, you need to question, do I need that data? You should not be storing that data longer than you actually need it for. And there are times we need that data, and we'll acknowledge that, but you need to have thought about it. And second of all, you have to be prepared that if someone comes to you and says, I need all of the email you have sent about me backwards and forwards, not to me, about me, that includes my personally identifiable information, as a service owner, you may have to turn that over, right? This is about service owners. This is about people who are holding personal data in the context of a project. It's not about personal email. Absolutely, you do not have to turn all of that information over, right? You can redact bits. You obviously can't release sensitive personal information about other people than the requester, but you should be aware that as an individual, there's an onus on you. So minimize your data, right? Don't store it if you don't need to. Don't store it longer than you need to. That is a principle of the GDPR. It is a perfectly reasonable one. Minimize your communications. If you don't need to have the conversation, don't, right? I mean, because then it's recorded. This is the thing that comes down in companies. People write all sorts of things on internal messengers and don't realize that they're all logged, and then it's like, hey, that's identifiable and can be requested. Not much of an issue with us, but your IRC logs, right? If you're actually on an IRC channel and you log all of the IRC conversations you have, and it includes personally identifiable information and it's with your project hat on, it is perfectly reasonable that someone might come and ask you for that data. Be aware of when you hold someone's data. The main thing we've done in terms of actually trying to get this out to the public is we've now got a privacy page on the Debian website, which is not always as easy to find as it should be. I think it used to be on the footer and then it got moved around, and I should have checked before I started this talk where it is. We have tried to list every single service we know that is run by Debian, i.e. under Debian.org, right? We don't cover Debian.net in the privacy policy because it's Debian personal developer stuff, but project official stuff, Debian.org. If you run something under that holds personally identifiable information and you're not listed on the privacy page, or it's not accurate, then you need to fix it. And you can submit a merge request into the web archive directly and then copy the data protection team on it or ask us to look at it, and we absolutely will. That's about I have thought about what data I store. These are my justifications for why I store it. Here is how the public can discover what we store. You also need to think about how you'd implement data takeout. And we haven't really got a good answer for this as a project yet. It's a complicated problem. But it would be nice if, as a Debian contributor, I could go and click on a link and do a complete download of all the information the project holds about me. I think that's probably a pipe dream that we'll never entirely get to, but there are things like my NM records, my upload records, details of all the list posts I have, things that are public that I should be able to get easy access to. And as a project, we're actually in quite a good position because almost everything we do is in the open anyway. So all of the information Debian generally holds about people is already out there, and in fact is deliberately archived. It's in bug lists. There's not a huge amount of private communication about individuals that goes on, because that's not how we work as a project, which is good. I am hugely in favor of contributors.debian.org. If you're running a service that has any form of user information on it and you're not feeding into contributors.debian.org, you should. It has two advantages, right? One is it gives people who contribute to Debian a nice glow that they can go and look and, hey, this is what I've done for Debian, and Debian acknowledges this, right? So the new members process looks at it, hey, what contributions do people have to Debian? Where are they involved? Have they been posting to mailing lists? Have they been filing bugs, whatever? But hey, from a data protection point of view, it means that as an individual, I can go and I can see, hey, what does the project know about me? It's all in one place. So service owners should do this work. They should feed to things. Enrico's looking at me as they're as easy. So this is contributors.debian.org is good for many ways. You can make project contributors happy while also helping fulfill data protection stuff by going and making sure you do data feed to it. It's something we could long-term potentially add in the data takeout to, right? Because it is that focal point of what does the project know about me. And it's got no ability to modify, but it has tendrils into everything. Privacy policy, I did include the link. Well done, me. If you're a service owner, go review that, right? Go and have a look. There are at least a couple of things I know are missing on it, and we sort of started some conversations, and I should chase up about them. But by and large, the majority of everything we're storing is on that. And the intent is to document correctly. At the moment, we're not trying to force anyone to change their policy unless we look at it and we go, what the hell are you doing that for? But largely, the first step for all of this is we should document what we do with people's data. We owe that to our users. Even without the legal obligation, we as a project should be able to tell people what we do with their data and where it is. We mostly have that in archives and mailing lists so people can search stuff. We mostly have it in bug reports so people can search stuff. We mostly have that on, things like the keyring is a great example of something that's complicated, right? Because I have email addresses in the Debian keyring, and I can't remove those because they're for audit reasons, right? So if you submit a key to the keyring, you sort of know what you're getting into. But that's a particular use case. But we document rather than alter. If it looks really bad, or if there's something that someone's unsure about or whatever, we'll certainly have a conversation as a team and try and advise. But there is a huge onus on service owners to do the right thing. And as a team, our focus is largely on helping teams do the right thing rather than coming in and dictating what they need to do or trying to get access to every single service and actually then implement the code on things we don't understand, right, and potentially breaking things. So there is a team email address for your questions. It's the same for internal, external. We don't get a huge amount of traffic these days. We've got a reasonable bit at the start. Anything else I should mention? Every now and again, someone talks about lawyers. As a project, I can say that we have talked to lawyers when it has been appropriate for either access requests or conversations we've been having internally. It's not our first course of action, because largely the people who sort of come and say, hey, if you don't believe me, go talk to a lawyer, it's like, well, actually, no, you're just trolling, right? If you're inside the project and you want to throw rocks at us, we're not going to be happy about that. If you're inside the project or outside the project and you want to help and talk about stuff, we're absolutely prepared to have the conversation. This is still undecided as far as I can tell in terms of case law, right? I fully believe, and I'm reluctant to say this on camera, this is my personal belief. It is not necessarily the team's belief. It is not necessarily the DPL's belief. All the caveats associated with that. I believe that in most cases, the purpose of the GDPR and Information Commission officers is to encourage compliance rather to penalize people who are trying to do the right thing. As a project, we are a volunteer organization who are, in every instance I've talked to of a service owner, we're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to make sure we're holding data in appropriate fashions while still allowing us to do the things we need to do, right? There are certain reasons why we have the data, certain things we need to hold over time, things like, give you a good example, nm.debian.org, right? New maintainer process. Person does 10 years worth of Debian work and then decides they're going to go emeritus and they've had enough of Debian for the now and they go away, and then 5 years later they decide they're going to come back. it's of value to both the person and the project that we continue to have the fact that they spent 10 years contributing to Debian before they went away and then came back, right? That's personal data we hold for a long piece of time. If they want us to remove it, we can absolutely do that, but by default, we won't because it's in everyone's interest. So there's a good example of a long-term retention. On the other hand, you know, I can't think of a short-term one where you just throw it away. But there are contributions where you don't really need to pay attention. You know, we've had people who have accidentally sent their CV to the mailing list, and that's an honest mistake, right? And you fix that one. You go, hey, yeah, you don't want to send your CV to the mailing list, or you've accidentally included your personal postal address in the mailing list, and the list masters will sort that one out. As a project, we are definitely trying to do the right thing. I think that's important. There's a mic.
Possibly track records of refused merge requests or spam, clicking the spam button on mailing lists. That could be things that we could throw away faster.
Yeah. So yeah, the spam one, clicking a spam button on a mailing list shouldn't really have personally identifiable information. I guess it might have a username record with it. But yeah, there's things like merge requests and whatever that you would throw away that we just don't need to store. And we should do that. But yeah, so that's my gut feeling on, and there's been some scaremongering about, hey, we're all individually liable as a project member for, you know, 20 million euros or whatever it is as the maximum fine under GDPR. Sure, if you are deliberately doing evil things with people's personal data, you are absolutely on the hook for that, and someone will absolutely come and try and sue you for it, and it's a matter of I was going to say it's a matter of when, not if, but unfortunately that's not the way the world works. If you have documented your usage of data, it's on the privacy policy that you stored as part of your service. If you, in good faith, try and respond to all of the requests that come in for data correction or data deletion in appropriate cases, and if you are in good faith trying to do all of these things, I would be extremely surprised if any data protection commissioner actually came in and started out with a fine rather than merely trying to hit you with the stick to do the right thing, right? And that, I have talked to data commissioners about this, and that was very much the line they were taking. We are much more interested in enforcement, and it's only in cases where people are deliberately doing bad things with data or completely fail to clean up whenever we come and tell them that we're going to kick in the fines. It wasn't their first course of action. So I don't believe as a project we have to worry, but as a project we definitely shouldn't be complacent, and as a service owner you definitely should be thinking about these things.
Questions? 3 minutes. I just want to say thank you so much. This is very informative.
As I say, I'm about for the rest of the week, so if anyone wants to tell me I'm wrong privately or publicly but not on camera, then you can do so later. Enrico has a...
Oh, sorry.
I propose to sit down at some point during the conference to add a field in the contributors database for data sources to link to data retention, take out something, and then implement as an exercise to one of the sites I control, and then spam people saying you do the same as well.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Noodles,
Off the
aka
hook.
Jonathan.